Thank you for joining me. Today, we'll be painting a 𝓂𝐀𝐃
shock trooper.
We'll be using Army Painter color primer in the color Plate Mail Metal. Here are the colors that we'll be using today. Broadsword Silver, Forest Sprite, Satchel Brown, Gravelord Gray, After your model is dry from being primed, I like to go through and do a dry brush with a light color to emphasize the highlights and details in your model. Today, I'm going to use the Citadel color base Borax White. From the famous shock troops of its infantry regiments to the dedicated crews of its armored war engines and the gunners who man its artillery and heavy weapons, the disciplined and professional warriors of the 𝓂𝐾𝐃 regimentum are lauded throughout the Imperium as born soldiers. That there will be no more of their kind born on 𝐂𝐾𝐃 itself is not the death knell that many fear. The 𝓂𝐾𝐃 lineage continues in every new generation that comes of age as the fleet-born armies make their years-long transitions between war zones. 𝓂𝐾𝐃 tactics and dogma have spread to many other worlds, and 𝓂𝐾𝐃 regiments are frequently reinforced with soldiers from other regiments. In these ways, the fortress world survives, its huge armies marshaled by the Lord Castellan Ursula Creed. Every generation of 𝓂𝐾𝐃 soldiery undergoes total military indoctrination. At the age of most other worlds' raw recruits, every 𝓂𝐾𝐃 has had more than a decade's experience. Through constant drills and endurance trials, they train to be deadly shots in the cacophony of war and proficient in hand-to-hand combat. They even receive a carefully monitored introduction to the perils of cyber tank and mutations. For such were the risks of living in a world so near to the Eye of Terror. And this grounding has proved more than beneficial in the numerous other worlds now cursed with the Great Rift's caress. This approach leaves 𝓂𝐾𝐃 soldiers mentally and spiritually fortified with a grim acceptance of things that would send lesser humans screaming in terror. Pew pew, pew 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 pew. So now that the dry brush is done, I like to start from light to dark, because you can always add more to make it darker, but it's actually harder to bring out the light once you get to that point. So first off, for his skin tone, I'm going to do the Citadel color layer 𝐒𝐊 Flesh first. And I forgot to mention, I'm also going to do, a Crusader skin on top of that once it dries to help emphasize some of the detail. The Speed Paint 2.0 Crusader skin. Because it's such a small area that I'm painting, I am going to use a smaller tip brush. I'm using the 10.0 Golden Maple brush. As you can see, the tip is very, very tiny. Be ever so soft, like angel's wings. If you don't make someone proud in your life, make yourself proud. Or even the Great Emperor. That's okay too. The Emperor will always be proud of whatever you do. Okay, now that we let that dry, now we're going to go in and put a little bit of depth in there with the Crusader skin. So we're going to shake that up. Put it on our wet palette over here. Just ever so lightly. Just kind of dab it in there. There we go. Wonderful. It really brings out his eyes. So while we're waiting for his skin to dry, I'm going to go ahead and add the green. Now his pants are going to be a darker green, so I'm going to mix both the Forest Sprite and the Gravelord Gray on my wet palette. I went up in size. I'm on a 3.0 in this Nicro Pro round tip. So it's a little bit rounder because there's going to be a lot more space. I can control it better with a finer tip there. Okay. So his little knee pads, they're going to be green. Now I don't know if you know this, but green, the human eye, can see more shades of green than any other color. I wonder why that is. I think that's good for green. Now we could do the mixing color. We can do that. We could clean our brush. Yes, I love that. That's wonderful. Just dark enough. Wonderful. Now that we're done with the green, and while we're letting that dry, we're to go in with the Satchel Brown. This, I'm going to paint up his sleeves, his boots, and his backpack. Maybe a little bit of his canteen as well. You know, and it's okay to get on the base, because we're just most likely going to paint the base black later. Or maybe even add some detail. Who knows? So it's okay to be a little messy. Okay. That looks great. So while the brown is drying, we're to go through and do Broadsword Silver, which would be for his las gun and his grenades. And all in those creases, which is exactly what we want. But then the dry brush we did really brings out the highlights we also wanted to emphasize. So that was it for the Broadsword Silver. Now we're to go through with the Citadel color base Balthazar Gold. I'll have to look at that later. Kind of got a little on the name. Since there is so much little detail, I'm going to use back at the 10.0 brush of the fine tip, just so I can make sure I get all the little details I want to emphasize. All the buckles and all the golden eagles that he has. Okay, let's start with let's go down, up. There we go. Wow, what a difference. That really pops. I like that. The only near universal piece of equipment throughout the entirety of the 𝓃 𝓏𝓪𝓯 is the las gun. This weapon is cheap and easy to manufacture, and extremely reliable. It is therefore ideally suited to arm the massed armies of the Imperial Guard. Many infantry regiments are recruited from worlds with far lower technological basis than exist upon the Imperial's so-called civilized worlds. The las gun's ease of operation and simple maintenance rituals means it can be thrust into the hands of factorum laborers, near feral barbarians, and spire-born socialites alike, without fear its uses beyond any of them. Of the countless 𝓃 𝓏𝓪𝓯 armies fighting the Emperor's wars at any given moment, no two appear the same. Disrupted supply lines, environmental conditions, the aesthetic taste of commanding officers. All these factors and more mean that even companies raised at the same time from the same regiment can differ significantly in their uniforms and war gear. Some regiments impose strict parameters on the appearance of their soldiers, fitting them with garish and ostentatious uniforms. Other issues camouflage combat fatigues, but even these may be subject to regimental tradition in their patterning. Some other infantry regiments distinguish companies or platoons with uniform colors significant to their culture. The commanders of others turn a blind eye to individualistic fetishes, trophies, and scarification. Those heavily influenced by 𝓃 doctrine employ bold rondels, the color of one half indicating company and that of the other the platoon, with an alphanumeric sigil overlaid to indicate the unit identity. Once your
shock trooper
is nice and dry, let's hit it up with a little bit of Shade Null Oil. So he is ready to go. He's looking a little too bright, but once we put some nice shade on him, it'll really tone down and deepen a lot of these colors. So what I'm using is actually, let's see, the Army Painter base coating brush. I kind of like it. It's really good bristles. It's really like thick, good point on it. So we'll go from there. Yeah. You don't want to use too much on it. You don't want to drown them. You just want to kind of lightly coat them. Some nice shade oil. Really darken and add them some grime. You know, the future's kind of grim in the Warhammer universe, you know? Not very fun. But we can have fun when we paint our miniatures, can't we? Create little backstories, little personalities, names. There we go. Wow, look at the difference already. He's looking great. You know, a little goes a long way. Now he's ready to go and make the Emperor proud. Let's say Emperor Daddy. I mean, you could think of him like that, I guess. You know, he is the Emperor of mankind, some would say. There we go. That looks great. So now that we're done with the oil wash, you could call it that, we're going to go ahead and complete the base. Like I mentioned before, it's going to be a little messy, little happy accidents. That's okay. We're going to go through with the Citadel color base, Abaddon Black. I could be pronouncing that wrong. That's okay. We're just going to go ahead and kind of clean up the base, make it nice and pretty. I went ahead and added the black to my wet palette just to make a nice smooth finish. And I'm going to start first at the feet. And I'm going to work out from there, because for the feet, we want to be nice and gentle, right? We want to nice and easy from there. It's like putting a frame around a picture that you worked so hard on. What a difference. You did a great job today. We're going to call this one finished. Thank you for joining me today on painting a 𝐂𝐀𝐃 Shock Trooper. I'll see you next time. Happy painting.